Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take the sources you share and really pull out the key insights, the surprising details, everything you need for a deep understanding of a complex topic. And today, well, we're doing a deep dive into the life of Matthew Langford Perry, someone known, globally, for playing one of the most recognizable characters ever on TV.
Chandler Bing, yeah. Absolutely iconic. But as you said, the sources we're looking at paint a picture that's, well, it's incredibly complicated.
Exactly, that huge public fame, right?
Yeah.
But then this stark contrast with a really private, lifelong, and frankly profound struggle.
That contrast, that juxtaposition, the comedic genius we all saw versus this constant, overwhelming internal battle, that's really the core theme of his life story, isn't it?
It seems to be.
Matthew Perry, born 1969, died just last year, 2023, only 54. An actor, yes, but in his later years, he became almost equally known as an advocate, someone who spoke incredibly openly about what he called the big, terrible thing.
Addiction.
His disease of addiction, yeah. So our mission today is to really unpack that complexity. We're drawing insights not just from, his career highs, the Friends stuff,
right,
but also from the raw investigative and biographical sources, the ones that detail his life, his immense, almost unbelievable effort towards recovery, and ultimately the tragic circumstances of his death.
And looking at the sources, what jumps out almost immediately is the kind of high-profile world he came from. He had dual citizenship, American and Canadian. His parents were public figures themselves. His dad, John Bennett Perry, an actor and model. And his mother, Suzanne Marie Morrison, held a really significant role in Canada. She was press secretary for Pierre Trudeau.
The prime minister at the time, yeah.
That's quite a foundation, isn't it? Almost like, well, Canadian political royalty mixed with Hollywood. For a life lived so much in the public eye under such intense scrutiny later on.
It is. And that background, that pedigree, it's actually pretty crucial context for understanding his Canadian childhood and early ambitions. His parents split up when he was really young, just 1 year old.
Wow, okay.
So he was raised mostly in Ottawa, Ontario, primarily by his mother and his Canadian stepfather, whom many people would recognize, Keith Morrison.
The broadcast journalist, yeah, very well known.
Exactly, a respected journalist.
And it's in that environment, according to his own words, his own memoir, that the sort of emotional seeds of his later issues started to grow.
That's what he points to.
He famously described feeling like a family outsider, or the word he used was unaccompanied, especially, it seems, as his mother and stepfather started having more children together.
Right. And the sources, the biographical ones, they really treat that self-assessment as critical, absolutely key to understanding why he might have had such an intense need for, external validation and that feeling of emotional distance he carried.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Biographers use that feeling, that context, to help explain the early misbehavior. It apparently started around age 10. Things like stealing money, smoking. His grades started slipping pretty quickly. He said himself he was often on the outside looking in, and maybe, the negative attention he got from acting out sort of filled that void he felt.
That need for attention. It makes you think about that anecdote from his school days in Ottawa. It's a piece of trivia people always bring up.
Oh, the Trudeau story.
Yeah, he wrote about beating up a fellow student who, years later becomes the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau.
Right.
Now, that's often played for laughs, like a funny celebrity footnote. But do the sources actually, connect that early aggression to his later stuff, his self-worth issues, the rebellion?
Well, they do, maybe implicitly. They sort of frame it as part of this larger pattern, right? Acting out when he felt insecure or abandoned. It wasn't just a funny story in isolation. It maybe highlights an early tendency to seek control, sometimes in, destructive ways. And critically, this is also when the substance use begins. The sources are clear. He started drinking alcohol at 14.
14. Wow.
Yeah, and it escalated fast. By 18, he was drinking daily. That timeline is important because it shows how early and how quickly the disease took root. Long before, the pressures of Hollywood or Friends fame ever came into the picture.
But here's what's so fascinating and almost contradictory. This early rebellion was happening alongside something totally different. This intense, high-achieving focus on sports.
Tennis, yeah.
He was a top-ranked junior tennis player in Canada, practicing 10 hours a day sometimes?
Incredible dedication. That level of focus, it's more than just discipline, isn't it? It suggests this obsessive quality, a capacity for perfectionism, for performance.
Absolutely. And that seems like a thread we need to follow through this whole deep dive, right?
I think so. That same internal drive, that engine that pushed him to excel on the tennis court, that kind of hyper-focus, It seems like it could have translated almost directly into the obsessive nature of his addiction later, and maybe even his attempts at recovery, too.
Like swapping one obsession for another.
Possibly, yeah. But that intense focus on tennis, that path, it hit a wall. When he moved to Los Angeles at 15 to live with his father.
Right, the competition was just way tougher in the U.S.
Much tougher. So his pro tennis dreams faded pretty quickly. It's a classic pivot point, you know. Losing one big ambition, and it leads you straight into pursuing the next one.
Acting.
Exactly. He transitioned almost immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Studied at the Buckley School, took improv comedy classes at LA Connection, graduated high school in '87, and the shift was quick. From one kind of intense public performance tennis to another acting.
And that pivot really kicks off the ascent to international stardom.
Yeah, looking at that pre-Friends time, say 79 through 93, you see him building a solid working actor's resume, guest spots here and there, Charles in Charge, Silver Spoons.
Standard stuff for a young actor, then.
Pretty standard. But there's one role from that time that, looking back now, carries this immense, almost chilling weight. His recurring role as Sandy on Growing Pains.
Ah, you mean because his character, Sandy,
dies in a drunk driving incident, yes.
And given that Perry himself was already struggling with alcohol as a teen, the irony is just...
Wow.
It's almost unbearable. It's one of those moments where art and life feel uncomfortably close.
It really is. And while he's building this TV resume, he also makes his film debut in '88, A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon. But then comes the moment where he nearly misses the role that defines everything because of this genuinely bizarre TV pilot commitment.
We absolutely have to talk about the near miss with Friends. He was like completely locked in, right? Unavailable for the pilot of 6 of 1, which became Friends because he was committed to another pilot called LAX 2194.
LAX 2194. I mean, the premise alone, it's almost too absurd to believe.
What was it again? Baggage handlers.
A futuristic sitcom about baggage handlers at Los Angeles International Airport, set 200 years in the future. And Matthew Perry was supposed to be one of the leads.
That's incredible.
The fact that television history almost gave us Matthew Perry as a space-age baggage handler instead of Chandler Bing is one of the great what-ifs, truly.
But luckily for, well, everyone, that pilot crashed and burned.
Didn't get picked up, yeah.
Which freed him up just in the nick of time to audition for and land the role of Chandler. He was 24, the youngest of the main 6. And that show, Friends, running 94 to 2004, it just catapulted him into international stardom.
The money alone tells you the scale of it. The sources confirm by that final season in 2002, he and the rest of the main cast were earning an absolutely unprecedented $1 million per episode.
$1 million an episode.
That was a benchmark, a level of TV stardom and financial success very, very few actors ever achieve.
But the sources also show he wasn't just resting on Chandler, even during the peak Friends years. He was pushing himself. He got good notices for film roles, like Fools Rush In, The Whole 9 Yards.
Right.
And he got an Emmy nomination in 2002 for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series for that episode, the one where Chandler takes a bath.
Which was a great showcase for him, yeah. But it was really his moves into dramatic work that I think highlighted his range beyond just the sarcasm and the wit of Chandler.
Like The West Wing?
Exactly. He got 2 Emmy nominations for Outstanding Guest Actor in a Drama Series for playing Joe Quincy in Aaron Sorkin's The West Wing. That was 2003 and 2004. Playing that kind of straight-laced, hyper-intelligent, purely dramatic role. It really proved his talent wasn't just, you know, a one-trick pony. He showed he could absolutely handle serious drama. He also did a stint on Ally McBeal.
And we see the first little hints here of his later desire for more control, don't we? He directed an episode of Scrubs.
He did, the episode My Unicorn, and his father, John Bennett Perry, actually guest starred in it.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, it feels like a career marked by constantly pushing outwards, trying to explore beyond the massive shadow cast by this one iconic character.
And that push for more creative variety, for control, definitely continued in his later work, creative control, and diversified roles after Friends ended.
Absolutely. The recognition kept coming, too.
Almost immediately, Britt. In 2006, he got nominated for both an Emmy and a Golden Globe for his performance in that TV movie, The Ron Clark Story.
Really strong performance. It showed, again, when he got serious, dramatic material, he could really deliver.
And that success led him right back to Aaron Sorkin.
It did. He took the lead role, Matt Albee, in Sorkin's next big show, Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. That ran 2006 to 2007.
Short-lived, but well-regarded critically at least initially.
Right. And the sources emphasize that playing that character, this incredibly high-strung, super quick-witted writer-director, it was actually a fantastic fit for Perry's specific verbal style and intensity, even if the show itself didn't last long.
Then on the movie side, he had a big hit with 17 Emmy, again in 2009, playing the older version of Zac Efron's character.
Big box office success, yeah. But interestingly, the sources point out that some critics felt he was maybe miscast, or perhaps just that the physical resemblance or mannerisms between him and the younger Efron didn't quite sell the whole concept perfectly.
Huh. That's unusual. Usually his casting felt pretty spot on.
It's a rare note, but maybe less strange than how he got his next big gig, which was in voice acting.
Oh, the video game story.
Yeah. Apparently, he gifted Ellen DeGeneres an Xbox 360 and a copy of the game Fallout 3 when he was on her show.
Okay.
And somehow that caught the attention of the game developers at Bethesda, which led to them casting him as the voice of Benny, who's a major antagonist, in their next huge game, Fallout, New Vegas in 2010.
He got cast in a massive video game because he gave Ellen an Xbox.
Seems like it. It's a pretty unconventional way to land a major voice acting role, basically secured through a high-profile gift.
Well, I guess it speaks to his level of celebrity then. But beyond acting, you really see his focus shift, right, towards having more control, writing, producing.
Definitely. He moved heavily into that. He co-created, co-wrote, executive produced, and starred in Mr. Sunshine in 2011. That was based on his own original idea.
But that one didn't last long either, did it?
No, unfortunately. ABC canceled it pretty quickly after only 9 episodes aired. The sources kind of suggest that maybe having too much control or taking it on too quickly didn't automatically guarantee success.
A tough lesson, maybe?
Perhaps. But he bounced back pretty successfully. He co-developed and starred in the revival of The Odd Couple from 2015 to 2017, playing Oscar Madison.
Right, a classic role.
And again, he co-wrote and executive produced that show too. So it shows he still had the clout and the drive to get major network projects off the ground, projects that fit his comedic style.
But maybe the most deeply personal project from this time wasn't a sitcom at all. It was his play, The End of Longing.
Yes. That premiered in London in 2016, and the sources note his own description of it. He called it a personal message to the world, an exaggerated form of me as a drunk.
That's a really stark admission, especially for someone known primarily for comedy.
It is, and it connects directly to what became his later advocacy mission. He specifically said about the play he had something important to say to people like me and to people who love people like me.
So the play was kind of his first big public step towards defining himself by the struggle, even before the memoir came out.
It seems that way, yeah. His last major dramatic role was playing Ted Kennedy in that 2017 miniseries, The Kennedys, after Camelot. And then, of course, the culmination of all this desire for honesty, for telling his own story, was his memoir in 2022, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing.
Which was a huge bestseller. New York Times, Amazon. It just flew off the shelves.
Right.
Because it revealed the full, unvarnished truth, the extent of this decades-long war he'd been fighting against addiction.
Right. And that really brings us into the depth of the struggle, health and addiction. This is where, the laughter kind of stops and the sources become this truly shocking record of both resilience and devastation.
It's a completely different narrative, isn't it?
A profound counter-narrative. And the timeline starts so much earlier than I think most people realized. He was dealing with alcoholism by 14.
14.
But the switch to opioid dependency, that really kicked in after a jet ski accident in 1997. He needed pain management. And that led directly to his first rehab stay, 28 days, that same year.
And the numbers he shared about his lowest points, they're almost hard to wrap your head around.
They really are.
Taking up to 55 Vicodin pills a day.
55. Daily. His weight dropped to, 128 pounds? Dangerously low.
And this culminated in that hospitalization in May 2000 for alcohol-induced pancreatitis. And all of this is happening while he's starring on the biggest show on television, one of the most famous people on the planet.
That's where the struggle and the fame intersect so painfully. He was incredibly candid about it in the memoir. During the later seasons of Friends, he said he was frequently drunk or high right there on set.
How did he even function?
He talked about arriving with obvious hangovers, sometimes shaking, sweating excessively. I mean, the mental effort required to deliver that kind of rapid-fire, perfectly timed comedy while actively battling addiction. It must have been just agonizing.
The detail that just guts me, though, the one that really strips away any remaining glamour from that sitcom world, is his admission that because of the substance abuse, he has, quote, no memory of 3 years of working on Friends.
Yeah. 3 whole years.
An entire peak creative period for him just wiped clean from his memory by the disease. You can't put a price on that loss. That's irreplaceable.
And his castmates, the sources say, they knew. They tried desperately to help him. They even staged an intervention at one point.
Which he wrote about.
Right. And while he acknowledged their support was crucial, ultimately it wasn't enough then to stop the cycle. He had to halt production on both Friends and his movie Serving Sarah in February 2001.
Right, to go back to rehab?
To enter inpatient rehab again, yeah. For this really dangerous mix, Vicodin, methadone, amphetamines, and alcohol.
But we really need to pause and absorb the severity of the near-death experiences he survived, because they illustrate just how brutal this disease can be. The most terrifying one was in 2018. His colon literally burst.
Directly because of the chronic opioid abuse.
And the prognosis was grim.
Devastating. Doctors told him he had maybe a 2% chance of survival. 2%.
Unbelievable.
He spent 2 weeks in a coma. He was hooked up to an ECMO machine that's extracorporeal membrane oxygenation. It basically does the work of your heart and lungs when they fail, just to buy time.
Wow.
And after somehow surviving that, he then had to use a colostomy bag for 9 months. That wasn't just a health scare. It was a full-blown physical catastrophe.
And yet the near misses just kept coming. It shows how relentless the dependency was. He admitted to faking pain just to get doctors to prescribe extreme amounts of hydrocodone, reaching, 1,800 milligrams a day.
Mind-boggling dose.
Yeah.
Then during another surgery later, his heart actually stopped for 5 minutes because of a reaction to propofol, the anesthetic.
His heart stopped for 5 minutes.
And the emergency CPR they performed to save his life, it broke 8 of his ribs.
Oh my God.
So this isn't just, general wear and tear from addiction. These were multiple distinct catastrophic events where he came incredibly close to dying, all directly linked to the substance use and its consequences.
The sheer cost of this war he was fighting.
Yeah.
It's just staggering, financially, psychologically. In 2022, he laid out the numbers himself. He estimated he spent $9 million trying to get sober.
$9 million. Just let that sink in.
That covered what, 15 different rehab stays?
15 rehabs, 14 stomach surgeries, mostly dealing with the damage the pills did to his digestive system, 6,000 Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and 30 years of therapy twice a week.
Those numbers just define the sheer scale of the obsession, don't they?
They absolutely do. And the sources back this up, noting he had this perfectionist and obsessive personality. It apparently extended to everything, even tiny details like recording the perfect answering machine message back in the day.
So it's that same perfectionist drive.
The same one that fueled his tennis, that fueled his comedy timing, but applied with equal, and in this case devastating, force to both his addiction and his attempts to overcome it.
It's like his greatest strength was also tied to his greatest vulnerability.
It seems that way. And yet, amidst all that physical chaos, the financial drain, the sources do mention an internal anchor. He spoke openly about his faith, called himself a seeker, said he had a very close relationship with God, maybe finding some kind of spiritual solace in the middle of that lifelong storm.
And that commitment, maybe finding meaning through the struggle, it seems like it directly fueled his desire to change his legacy. Which brings us to the next part. Legacy as an advocate and the final investigation.
Yes, he really wanted to be remembered for helping others.
And his advocacy wasn't just, celebrity awareness campaigns. It was serious policy work. In 2011, he was actually lobbying the U.S. Congress.
Right. As the spokesperson for the National Association of Drug Court Professionals, he was arguing for more funding for drug courts, understanding that addiction needed systemic solutions, not just individual willpower.
He saw the bigger picture.
Absolutely. And his efforts got noticed. 2 years later, 2013, he received the Champion of Recovery Award from the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy.
And he put his money where his mouth was, literally. He turned his old Malibu mansion into Perry House.
A sober living facility specifically for men. He funded it himself, and it ran from 2013 to 2015, a very concrete investment in recovery.
And we know, because he said it very explicitly, he hoped people would remember him more for helping others get sober than for being Chandler Bing.
That was his stated wish. And in a really poignant continuation of that, the Matthew Perry Foundation was set up just days after he died. Its whole mission is to continue supporting people struggling with addiction. That really became his final, lasting message.
Which makes the circumstances of his death even more tragic. We have to cover that now. October 28th, 2023. He was found unresponsive in his hot tub at home in Pacific Palisades. He was only 54.
Just 54. The official cause of death came out a couple of months later, December 15th. It was ruled an accident caused by the acute effects of ketamine.
But there were contributing factors too, right?
Yes, very important ones. The effects of buprenorphine, which is actually a medication used to treat opioid use disorder, drowning was listed, and also underlying coronary artery disease.
Okay, this point about the ketamine needs some careful explanation, I think.
It really does. The autopsy found high levels of ketamine in his system, and the conclusion was that this caused, quote, cardiovascular overstimulation and respiratory depression. Basically, his heart and breathing were dangerously affected, leading him to lose consciousness in the water.
So the drowning was a consequence of passing out from the ketamine.
That's how it was framed, yes. But here's the absolutely crucial part. The report definitively stated that the ketamine found in his system could not have been from his last known therapy session involving ketamine.
Why not?
Because that session was about a week before he died, and ketamine has a very short half-life in the body, only about 3 to 4 hours. So the ketamine that killed him had to have been taken much more recently, likely within hours of his death, and it was a large dose, acquired outside of any medical supervision.
Okay, so the lethal dose was obtained illicitly, not from his treatment.
Correct. And that realization that this fatal dose came from somewhere else is what triggered a major investigation. The LAPD and the DEA got involved starting around May 2024. They needed to figure out exactly how he got it, who supplied it.
A high-profile, high-stakes investigation.
Very. And it led somewhere. In August 2024, criminal charges were filed against 5 individuals.
5 people. Who were they?
The sources specify the group included his personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and 2 drug dealers. One of the dealers, interestingly, also worked as a TV director. All 5 were charged in connection with supplying the substances that contributed to his death, and eventually all 5 pleaded guilty.
Can we trace how the drugs actually got to him based on the investigation?
We can. It paints a pretty disturbing picture. The investigation found that Perry paid the 2 doctors involved a total of $55,000 in cash, specifically for ketamine, just in the 2 months before he died.
$55,000.
Yeah.
Cash. That shows how desperate he must have been.
It really does. And the network involved people very close to him. His own personal assistant, a man named Kenneth Iwamasa, admitted not only obtaining the drug for Perry, but also, shockingly, actually injecting Carey with it sometime.
Wow. Injecting him. That's crossing a serious line for an assistant.
A very serious line. It blurs assistant into active participant in something incredibly dangerous.
Okay, so the assistant administered it. Where did he get it from?
According to the pleas, one of the main sources was Eric Fleming, the TV director who also acted as a dealer. Fleming admitted getting 71 vials of ketamine from the primary supplier.
71 vials.
Yes. And then giving those vials to Iwamasa, the assistant, knowing they were for Perry.
And who was the primary supplier?
A woman named Jasveen Sangha. The investigation also uncovered text messages showing how the doctors coordinated. The second doctor, Salvador Plasencia, would apparently buy the ketamine he gave to Perry from the first doctor, Mark Chavez. So it was this whole interconnected criminal supply chain.
So Saga was at the top of this chain.
She was described in some reports as the ketamine queen, allegedly known for supplying wealthy clients and celebrities. She faced the most serious charges. In September 2025, just recently, she pleaded guilty to distribution resulting in death, along with other counts. She's facing up to 45 years in federal prison.
45 years. That reflects the severity.
Absolutely. And the other 4 involved are also facing significant prison time. Plasencia, one of the doctors, pleaded guilty to 4 counts of distributing ketamine, carrying a potential total of 40 years.
Okay.
Fleming, the director-dealer, faces up to 25 years. Iwamasa, the assistant who gave the injections, pleaded to charges carrying up to 15 years, and Chavez, the other doctor involved, faces up to 10 years.
This whole final chapter, the investigation, the guilty pleas, it just underscores the immense risk Perry was taking, the lengths he was going to in that final fatal pursuit of the substance.
It really does. And stepping back from the grim details, this entire deep dive gives us this complex picture of the dual legacy of Matthew Perry.
It really does. Because on the one hand, you absolutely have the enduring artistic legacy, that incredibly unique comic style, the perfect timing, the way he delivered lines like, "Could I be any more?"
Instantly recognizable.
Chandler Bing is, without question, one of the most iconic, most beloved characters in TV history. And that performance brought real joy to millions, billions maybe of people.
Absolutely. But that legacy exists alongside the constant shadow of the personal cost. the $9 million spent, the 14 stomach surgeries he endured, the 15 separate trips to rehab, all trying to beat back a disease that took hold when he was just a teenager, just 14.
And we have to connect that immense personal investment, that struggle, directly to his other legacy, the advocacy work.
They are intertwined.
And this, I think, is the final, maybe provocative thought we should leave with you, the listener, today. Think about it. Matthew Perry had resources most people can only dream of. Fame, enormous wealth, access to presumably the best doctors, the best treatment centers in the world.
Anything money could buy, essentially.
And yet, even with $9 million poured into the fight, he ultimately lost that battle. So what does Matthew Perry's incredibly expensive, incredibly exhaustive, and ultimately tragic struggle tell us about the sheer difficulty, maybe the systemic difficulty, of achieving lasting, lifelong recovery from severe addiction, even when money is no object?
It's a powerful question. It really forces us, I think, to acknowledge that the depth, the complexity of addiction, sometimes it's just greater than an individual's willpower or even the vast resources they can throw at it.
It's not just about wanting it enough, maybe.
Perhaps not. It challenges us to look beyond just the famous individual and consider whether recovery, even for the most privileged among us, still represents a profound challenge, maybe even a failure sometimes, for our society and our medical systems.
A truly sobering thought, and perhaps the ultimate measure of the man who, in the end, seemed to want his life defined not just by the jokes, but by his relentless, painful struggle to overcome his big, terrible thing.